Tonight, a deep dive into today's high-stress way of life and its impact on adults in their prime years. Millennials are the largest generation in the nation and make up the largest share of our workforce. Hello, I'm Karen Devine.
And I'm John White. They're at the age to become first-time home buyers and first-time parents. But as morning anchor Angela Chen reports tonight, the way of life many of them have dreamed about has fallen apart, and the severe impact on their mental health is starting to show.
Yeah, it's awesome. I was so excited.
It was the early 2000s, and you felt the pop in pop culture. Frosted tips, afternoons at the mall, the internet was dial-up, but dreams were full speed. Millennials had upbeat and happier teenage years.
So they really grew up with those messages about how important it was to feel good about yourself, and they took them to heart. It worked. They did see themselves in a more positive light than previous generations did at the same age.
Their childhood in the late 90s and 2000s was largely a time of economic energy and hope and the promise of a bright future with the emergence of widespread internet use. They dreamed big and were told if they worked hard, went to college, they could have it all. So, what happened? That picturesque future fell short in some of the most inconceivable ways.
Constant stress and burnout as a millennial is very true.
We spoke with a group of millennials from different cities across the Coachella Valley.
How are we doing this economy? How is life?
Things are tight, but I'm all right. And like that's kind of the feeling is like there's this existential kind of like trying to just kind of keep it together and make it through.
Does anyone else feel the same?
Surviving, but trying to thrive, not quite thriving.
That existential angst often popping up on sites like Reddit, where millennials often say it has been downhill since entering adulthood.
Late millennial here. I did everything right and it still feels impossible.
Anybody else beginning to lose any hope for the future?
Between what often feels like impossible housing prices, stagnant wages, social media stress, employment burnout, the student loan crisis, historically low birth rates, the Great Recession, and current economic instability, millennials are grappling with enormous crises in their prime years and its subsequent impact on mental health. They are seeing higher rates of major mental health conditions, including depression and hyperactivity, than the previous generation at the same age.
Starting around 2016 or 2017, we started to see a turnaround that in middle adulthood, millennials started to become more depressed compared to Gen Xers at the same ages.
With monikers like the anxious generation, the burnout generation, and the loneliest, 92% are reporting worse mental health since the pandemic. If comedy is used to mask pain, well, this joke costume floating around the internet, complete with crippling anxiety, hits close to home.
To be a millennial is to have the ultimate trauma bond.
So why does this matter? After all, every generation has faced unique struggles. The thing is, researchers like Dr. Twangy have shown us that in previous generations, mental health struggles in youth were connected to death rates in middle age, particularly with what she calls deaths of despair, like suicide and drug overdoses. And with worsening health, both mental and physical, among millennials now entering middle age, what would this mean for death rates and their future? The impact is already here. According to CDC numbers, millennials are dying at a significantly higher rate as prime-age adults than Gen Xers did. If nothing is done, mortality rates are expected to climb as high as 40%.
Once he puts this up against there...
Now managers and mothers and middle-aged burnouts, many say they feel they are miles behind where they should be.
It's the constant, you're never going to catch up. You're playing catch up for what seems forever.
The author of Generations says much of this is social media and being plugged in 24/7.
We had a lot of political polarization at that time. We know from social psychology studies that the material that spreads the fastest on social media is things that make people upset and angry. So there really was a cultural shift around that time.
Ever since we graduated, we were always the generation of like, you will always be available. Mm-hmm. We have endless tools that make us be connected to our work systems and in this really, really bleak job market, we're more or less like, I have to be the one to respond.
The exciting frontier of the internet in 2000 has now settled into information overload, constant connection, and being perpetually plugged in. It can be overstimulating and socially isolating, leading to mental health problems.
The impact of social media on self-esteem, on body image issues, on how it affects people's anxiety, especially actually when I'm treating people with anxiety, sometimes the treatment is to not use social media for some time.
Millennials were brought up to have very, very high expectations of what their lives were going to be like. So that disappointment with adulthood could be playing a factor.
But that disappointment also stems from what some millennials say are moving goalposts and people now working twice as hard to get half as far.
I look at my grandparents and their ability to, on one income, raise 3 kids, have 2 cars, take vacations every year. They had the American dream, and that American dream has slowly fallen away. We don't take vacations every year. We're getting by, but we're not doing the same things on a single income that our grandparents could do.
Part of the American dream, owning your home, is now out of reach for many millennials. In 1980, the median price of a house in America was $65,000. In 2025, it's $426,000. Here in the Coachella Valley, it has skyrocketed to $700,000. And salaries have not kept up. In the past 5 years, California wages have grown only 24%, while housing costs have shot up as much as 87%.
Yeah, so much of life has felt like I have to pick. What is it now? Is it being a mom? Is it being a career person? Is it, I don't know. It's so hard. It's so hard.
There's so much sacrifice.
Housing can be connected to birth rates languishing at its lowest in U.S. history with millennials and Gen Z. They have cited financial instability, concerns about the future, and the rising cost of childcare. Daycare now costs about $39,000 for 2, about 44% of California's median household income for a couple.
I know I will not have a second child. I will not have a second child. That decision has, even if I hadn't made that decision has been made for me. It doesn't make economic sense for us to do that.
Yeah, we can be optimistic, but to a point.
To a point, yes.
The cost of goods are 23.6% more expensive now than they were before the pandemic. And this is before the expected price hikes coming down the pipeline from President Trump's tariffs. They say millennials got to be kids during the best time, only to become adults at the worst. So what can possibly be done?
If you have policymakers, lawmakers watching this, what would you say to them? What is an actionable step they could take to help the mental health of millennials?
What can we do to improve our way of life and millennial mental health? What needs to change? In part 2, I'll explore possible solutions and ask tough questions to our lawmakers on what we can do to not only help millennials, but all future generations. For the I-Team, Angela Chen, News Channel 3.
Okay, important issues to be discussed.
Absolutely.
Also interesting what you brought up there in the middle about, every generation has faced their challenges as well.
Yeah.
So, looking forward to part 2. And we're always looking forward to your story ideas. We want to hear from you about what you would like us to investigate.
Feel free to email your story ideas to the I-Team at KESQ.com, or you can submit it through our website, KESQ.com. Share at KESQ.com.